The President of United States of America, Joe Biden, bolted out of the November race to seek second term, leaving the race for Donald Trump, who is likely to face off with Kamala Harris, who was the vice president to Joe Biden. And that is if the Democrats are going to or rather they are going to accept the endorsement by Biden for Kamala Harris to carry the Democrat flag. This is a political development that has had a toll in the African, in the Kenyan context. The move by Biden to step down has been really reached, and it is believed it is a collection of many reasons. And according to his team, he was facing electability issues which bordered on the age. Many instances, the president of the US has been falling, and you can, as some of the videos you can see playing here, this is Biden really, the physicality, his physicality even to lead for the next 4 years has been a concern. I think in Africa we should embrace this. I've seen some countries in West Africa, for example, just Cameroon. Cameroonian president is one of the oldest in the continent. In Nigeria, the person who took over, Tinubu took over from, was also old. At some point, they were even saying that, he was not coming out in public for nearly 6 months. So Biden is believed to have made that decision after assessing, rather evaluating electability and even ability to lead for the next 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you think that such a gesture should have happened in Kenya? Because even back home, President Ruto has been facing disastrous re-electability protests that have emerged when people question his government on matters, corruption, and many other aspects in the country. So in this podcast, I will try to look into this, rather delve deep in this and see what are some of the lessons that we can learn. But of critical impact is in Kenya, what is the impact of change of leadership in America here? Now, Biden bolting out of the race actually shows the collapse of Biden-Ruto project. The Biden-Ruto project is one that has been going on. Ruto power, and it's spelling a doom on Ruto power, because it is highly believed that America played a very critical role and ran the political software in machinations that propelled Ruto to power. And truth to that, immediately after that election, the President of the Republic of Kenya has been spearheading American agenda in the continent. Starting with this here, when Biden was praising President Ruto over the Haiti mission. This was the very first speech in United Nations General Assembly just a month after President Ruto's election.
We'll continue to do our part to push more reform efforts forward. Look for points of common ground and make progress in the year ahead. We need to be able to break the gridlock that too often stymies progress and blocks consensus on the Council. We need more voices, more perspectives at the table. The United Nations must continue to preserve peace, prevent conflict, and alleviate human suffering. And we embrace nations stepping up to lead in new ways. and to seek new breakthroughs on hard issues. For example, on Haiti, the Caribbean community is facilitating the dialogue among Haitian society. I thank President Ruto of Kenya, I thank him for his willingness to serve as the lead nation of a UN-backed security support mission. I call on the Security Council to authorize this mission now. The people of Haiti cannot wait much longer. The United States is working across the board to make global institutions more responsive, more effective, and more inclusive. For example, we've taken significant steps to reform and scale up the World Bank, expanding its financing to low and middle-income countries so it can help boost progress toward meeting the Sustainable Development Goals and better address interconnected challenges like climate change and fragility. Under the new president of the World Bank, change is already taking root. Last month, I asked the United States Congress for additional funds to expand World Bank financing by $25 billion. And at the G20, we rallied the major economies of the world to mobilize even more funding. Collectively, we can deliver a transformational boost to World Bank lending. And because the multilateral development banks are among the best tools we have for mobilizing transparent, high-quality investment in developing countries, reforming these institutions can be a game changer. Similarly, we proposed making sure developing countries have a strong voice and representation.
So from the very first project on Haiti mission, that Biden has also went ahead and invited the president and made one of the, high-profile state visit in the White House, meeting the president on a number of issues. So Ruto is having a difficult task moving forward because you cannot rub away the fact that part of his campaign was premised on, the first part of his, the first 2 years of his government was premised on bolstering the diplomatic strength of the country. And largely, the anchor point was United States of America. In fact, during the recent trip by the President Ruto to US, the speeches were laced with, the analysts, and we analyzed it here, you could not clearly point out, was William Ruto in America on behalf of the country Kenya, or in America to speak the African agenda? And largely, especially when he was speaking about AGOA, a speech that I would want you to get a snippet here.
We are also doing the same to make sure that none of us is left behind. We want to work with you on 3 major items. Number 1, we want to work with you on trade and investment. Yes. And I am very happy that I have had you with clarity saying that you want to reprioritize the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act, right. AGOA. Yes. My request to you from your friends, brothers, and sisters in the African continent is that that be done in a timely fashion so that we can see how we can expand investment. People are planning when they are going to invest, and we want you to assist us to renew AGOA for 10 years. That is the message from your brothers and sisters from the African continent, number 1. Number 2, when we met 3 weeks ago, I was asked by the World Bank to convene the International Development Association's 21st Replenishment Summit, where we are having a conversation on how we can assist African nations, 26 of them that are on the brink of debt distress. How do we fashion a better, a fairer international financial architecture that doesn't unnecessarily and doesn't unfairly treat Africa differently from other markets. Today, countries like Kenya borrow in the financial markets 8 times more in interest than other countries. And that is the case for most African countries. We are saying the Congressional Black Caucus, this great institution, the American Congress.
So this is what we are saying. And the reason why this kind of step down, it actually signifies a change of leadership. Whether it is Trump that will win or it is a Democrat candidate, another Democrat candidate apart from Biden that will take over, but there will be some sort of transition because the first transition has happened. Even within the Democrats, a transition has to happen because they need to get another candidate, even though Biden has pointed that they can pick Kamala Harris. Back in Kenya, Kenyan diplomats have tried to downplay the fact that the fate of the Kenyan deals might be, might not be materialized in case of any transition. But the truth of the matter here is a Trump win will really cause some troubles for the Kenyan deals. And I want us to use a good example. One of the most contentious issues that America has been facing is their support or their position on Russia-Ukraine war. And of course, because Ukraine is a NATO ally, they have been supporting Ukraine. And recently, even some of American supplied weapons were used by Ukraine to retaliate on the Russian attacks. But of course, if you follow the Russia-Ukraine conflict, we understand that much as many Western media want to say it is non-provoked violence, Russia believes that America actually disobeyed, or rather America did not obey the NATO pact of expanding NATO to some part, to the neighbors of Russia, as was agreed in the 1990 after the end of Soviet Union, the deal that was signed after the end of Soviet Union. So one of the things that have been here, Russia emerged as an enemy to the US and said enemy to US. Now Trump in his administration, or rather Trump in his campaigns, have said that he's going to mend fences with Russia. Mending fence with Russia is already a signal that there will be a paradigm shift in America's foreign policy. And that is why I can say that there will be a challenge. Kenya got even in more trouble because recently, when President Ruto was in Switzerland to attend the Ukraine-Russia Peace Summit, there is a speech he made against Russia that diplomats warned that was going overboard.
Which has left 500,000 people dead and 7.1 million people displaced in its wake. Across the world, people and nations are enduring the negative consequences of disrupted supply chains. Kenya's position has been clear and unequivocal from the beginning. Russia's aggression against Ukraine is unlawful, unjust, and a violation of the fundamental principles of international law, which honor the sovereign equality of nations, upholds their territorial integrity, and advocates the peaceful resolution of all disagreements. Just like the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East has been equally devastating. So is the case with the war in the Sahel region in Africa, in Eastern DRC, in Somalia, in the Horn of Africa, and of course in the Sudan. 40 million Africans have been displaced by the war in our continent, and 2.5 million kids are out of school. This state of affairs speaks volumes of global leadership, and especially the peace architecture at the United Nations, and more specifically, the gridlock at the United Nations Security Council. Today, a farmer in Kenya, in rural Kenya actually, knows there is war in Ukraine for two reasons. Number one, he paid more for his fertilizer, and number two, his fertilizer came late. This peace summit is a historic step in the right direction. For the first time, we have convened to talk about peace in Ukraine and not war in Ukraine. Secondly, a commitment to peace makes certain fundamental concessions inevitable. This summit should not be a meeting of just friends. This should be a meeting of both friends and foe. To succeed in this positive trajectory, Russia must be on the table, number one. Number two, an American general, Norman Swartzwell, said, the more we sweat in peace, the less we bleed in war. It is time for leaders of the world to talk about peace, negotiate peace, work hard to build peace, and configure a global strategic framework that integrates peace as the sole means and end of human endeavor. We have gathered here, and we are reminded by the Indian statesman Mahatma Gandhi, who said that an eye for an eye will make humanity blind. Just as Russia's invasion of Ukraine was unlawful and unacceptable, the unilateral appropriation of Russia's assets is equally unlawful, unacceptable, and a derogation from the UN Charter, especially for those of us who believe in freedom, justice, and democracy, and the rule of law. As we embark on this journey to resolve conflict in Ukraine and throughout the world, it's time for parties to the war in Ukraine to demonstrate good faith, abandon intransigent attitudes, and soften their positions.
So much as the foreign policy, the foreign ministry back in Kenya saying our deal with the US is intact, but a change in leadership is actually signaling the fact that there's some that might not really have happened. Remember, Haiti mission, Biden had to just make a personal appeal and a personal move to okay and to fund it, because Congress had declined even to pass the budget for the Haiti mission, and the Congress is both Democrats and Republicans. Now, if Biden, if Donald Trump is gonna make his way with that, he's gonna make his way to become the next president, there is going to be some shakeups here and there. And unlike if Congress have declined, and it will take upon individual input or individual effort by Donald Trump to set aside funds for Haiti mission. But I can promise you, because it's one of the most, that project, that Haiti mission, he's not even been getting full backing from UN member states, because the UN member states who are supposed to give money, to pump in money for the kitty, for the peacekeeping mission, have not been responding. Donald Trump might actually scrap it off. The second other impact on the Kenyan deals is President Ruto has been slandering some of the American donors, and this slander, especially the one on Ford Foundation, when he was talking about these protests. But something came out. I just saw an article that they are slandering Ford Foundation, and even the office of First Lady received some donor funding from that organization. I think sometimes we do a lot of miscalculation. But this is my context. Trump won. You know, if Trump wins, it will be Trump 2. Trump 1 was experienced, is known as a vocal critic of, you know, of American projects and policies that favor non-Americans. And Trump is pro-America. So if he becomes a president, I don't think, and this was experienced even during Trump reign, most of funding that was coming to the African continents and other continents outside America, it was a problem. So with this slandering, and you happen to get a Donald Trump who does not really support, even the presidential program on malaria during Trump had problems until Biden came through, and that is when it stabilized. But during Trump era, it had issues. So there is also another reason why the diplomats in Nairobi are wary, scratching their head about the fate of the Kenyan deals with the US. Now, I made this observation. The Biden endorsement of Kamala Harris, we should really think about this. In Kenya, we've had a culture of no president gets along with deputy towards the end. They've worked for 4 years, and even as Biden is stepping down, he has the audacity, he has the moral authority, and he has the liking of the members of his party to say, let us take my deputy for it. Probably it's time for Africa to soul search, and specific Kenya to soul search. When you're picking your deputy, against all those tribal calculations and those factors that are there, you should also pick a deputy that can carry on, that you can endorse for presidency. Look at Uhuru Ruto. By the end of Uhuru term, he could not even endorse William Ruto. Why? In fact, the person he saw, he was saying, and he was telling the country, he was warning the country that my deputy is not a good man. And it is not just that. Even currently, William Ruto and the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, have not been really, they've not had a very smooth relationship. And even before this protest, things have not been looking good. In fact, when the protesters were asking for Ruto must go, some analysts asked, so if Ruto go, then the deputy will remain. And then they come to a logical conclusion that the deputy might be worse than the president himself. So don't we find out that the fact that our politics is premised on personalities and tribal machinations and campaign financing. Some of these people is, you get a politician and you have to pick him on the size of his pocket. If you look at US, they are actually fundraising from the members of the public. And that is why they've really found their way with it. Now, the 59-year-old Kamala Harris was the second black woman to be elected in the US Senate, and also became the country's first female, first black, and first Asian American vice president. If Harris gets the nods of Democrats next month, then undoubtedly he is going to face his critic, he's going to face Donald Trump, who Republicans have been supporting for quite some time. Twice impeached, criminally convicted former president who narrowly survived an assassination attempt 2 days before the start of week's Republican National Convention. Biden VP, however, faces Trump carrying the burden of incumbency. And as to whether he will be able to get his way by going through that, it is just a matter of time to wait and see. And if he wins, she wins, probably she will become the first female American president after an unsuccessful attempt by Hillary Clinton. A very interesting concurrence here is the fact that in 2016, when Trump won, it was against Hillary Clinton, a woman. And again, in the next election, when he's seeking his second term, that will be his final term, he's also most likely going to face a woman. So in his political career, vying for presidency, because I don't want to believe he's vie tenor. In America, you vie twice, and then after that you don't vie again. That will be his last shot. So if he's going to face Kamala Harris, then he's going to find his way. He's going to face a woman yet again. But there is everything beautiful with American democracy. You know, just the act of climbing down. You guys, look at Kenya. Thinking of Ruto climbing down saying, oh, you guys, we've protested enough, so let UDA party pick another candidate. I'm stepping down at the end of my term. And in fact, that is what Ruto can do. But akifanya hiyo pia itakuwa amesema tu for the sake of it. Now, there's some few lessons that Kenya, I think we can learn from the Biden climb down. The first thing here is politicians must read the mood when making political decisions. There is an article that was, there is a criticism that President Ruto has been facing, that he's failed to read the mood. He's completely failed to read the mood. When people rejected the cabinet and people are feeling things are not good, he recycles the cabinet. I just saw a speech by members of the clergy saying that William Ruto is refueling the context, the protest himself, just by one mistake, failing to read the mood. Biden is feeling like he's too old for it. Probably his health-wise, he's evaluating his health. Biden is feeling his electability, and it feels like if he's the person that would make Democrats to lose that position in the next election, then he's giving the Democrats an opportunity to pick another candidate. What is he saying? He's actually reading the mood. We also understand that also, as someone who has been in power, those who are pro-Trump have really been hitting Biden in terms of performance. Not that he's been perfect, working on it, but he's assessed it. In fact, there was the first presidential debate that was done, Biden performed poorly. A poll that was done later on gave him 33%, 34% against Trump rating, which was 66%. So he's looked at his red card and outright say, no, I may not win it. So maybe the most honorable thing is to resign. So there is a lesson. I think even in the country, we must read the mood. This is something that politicians, and the reason why Kenyan politicians don't read the mood is because the interest is ahead. I saw Ahmed Nasir asking, why on earth would a minister like Murkomen and Linturi even think of going back to cabinet, asking to be taken back to cabinet? Why would such people even think about that? And they are saying it is not in order because some of these fellows, they are where the country is. So if they have the interest of the country at heart, they should not even dare make calls to the President Ruto to give them cabinet slots. Number two, and I take this with a lot of cognizance, that leaders must understand that they don't have monopoly of ideas. That it is not just you that can make the country. For example, Biden had an ambition for America. Yes. But he said after serving one term and realizing probably America is not buying my idea anymore, maybe I need to leave for someone else. That is the problem we have in this country. When President Ruto was elected, he came and thought, I want to change everything. I am right, and any other person who doesn't believe what I'm saying is wrong. It cannot be that they are the only person is right. You're the only person who is right. And all these other people are wrong. When President Ruto came, education system, I will change the funding model for the university. Health, I will turn from, NHIF to SHIF. People have been asking what about it. On matter of housing, I will introduce the levy so that I build houses for people. Something that is not there. He came and said, I'm going to revitalize and change the police and increase their salaries, this and that. It has failed. He came and said, I'm going to do something on CBC and I'm going to pay teachers and hire JSS interns. 2 years, the JSS interns are still in streets asking for employment. And so I've always been saying, William Ruto might have a good ambition for the country. Yes, he might have it. But it cannot be that it is the only solution that this country have. if someone else have another idea, we should also be accommodative. And if Kenyans say, oh, President, it's enough of your first term, so let's try someone else, we should not engage on transition frictions. Africa had that. I thank God in Kenya since 2017, 2007, we've had flawless, seamless transitions. So it's a lesson that even in Kenya, if there will be a transition in 2027 for change of guard, the country must allow to move on. The other thing is embracing the foreign deals as part of economic building. William Ruto overemphasized the fact that I am moving in these other countries looking for deals. I don't know how to build dams. I don't know how to build roads. I don't know how to build what. Probably we should learn. For example, we spent millions to carry some delegation to US to negotiate some deals with Biden. But then Biden has stepped down. There is a probability that much of what we asked, those promissory notes we've had, may not be actualized. So if that was part of our economic building strategy, then don't you realize that it is high time we emphasize and put our effort on domestic building? And lastly, I think there is a lesson of building party based on ideologies. Look at how Republicans, and immediately Trump made that announcement, I've been watching the TV stations. Some stalwart Democrats have been coming out supporting the Kamala Harris appointment, nomination by Biden. In fact, if this was in this country and Ruto steps down and probably Kindiki and probably says regardless the person, the next thing you would have seen is media interviews, people attending funerals and this and that, creating divisions all over. Look at what's happening in ODM. Because Mbadi wants to be the treasury CS in the next in the cabinet slot given to the ODM, there is a fight between Mbadi and Orengo, because Orengo is saying, before we negotiate, let's push social justice. So I think there is a lot we need to gather. In US, look at in Kenya, political parties are owned by individuals. Today, if Raila Odinga is not the party leader of ODM party, that party does not exist. Same to UDA. In fact, we have a caveat here that party leader is the automatic flag bearer. I remember in 2012, the split between Mudavadi and Raila, when Mudavadi asked ODM to remove that clause that the party leader automatically becomes the presidential candidate. I think there is every reason to look at the American. I don't even know the party leader, the chairman, the party leadership of Republicans and Democrats, despite the fact that they're the two most powerful political parties in the US. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my take. I don't know whether you're also seeing that some of the takeaways we had from US could be watered down by this development. I really want to read your feedback on that. Thank you.